Okay, I've been told, who likes to play games? If you don't know this about me, one takeaway from the day is that I love games and I'm super competitive.
Can we get some music up in here?
We have games at my house.
Service.
Yeah, we have games at my house all the time, game night, and we go late into the night and it gets a little crazy.
If you've heard of Settlers of Catan, she's like the queen of Settlers of Catan. No one can beat her.
I really am. But I've got my game hat on.
Whoa,
I'm getting real serious about it.
Right.
Guys,
hey, this shows we're serious.
We're serious. I was laying on a beach in Cabo one time, and did you know that you can shop while laying in the beach in Mexico? I never knew this. It was like two of my favorite things at the same time. These guys were walking by with these hats, and it called out to me. So.
It spoke to me.
It spoke to me.
Well, hey, Kennedy over here has some cards to give away. We are doing a giveaway trivia game right here, right now. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's start with the first question. Here we go. It says, the largest margin of victory in Super Bowl history was, what, 32 points, 45, 24, or 52? We're going to take a hand. We're going to take right here. All right, we heard 45. Let's see, is it 45?
Woo!
Whoa!
Yeah!
That's it! She gets a card. Awesome. These cards are around $10. Starbucks, Target, a bunch of different places. We want to give these away to all of you, but you got to raise your hand, answer some questions. All right, Jen, take it away. Second question.
Second question is, okay, in 2016, the cost to air a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl was $40,000, $300,000, $5 million, or $1 million. Okay. You right there. Right there.
Right here? $5 million? All right, let's see if we're right.
What?
Whoa!
Okay.
How'd you know that?
Now, we'll try to get some back on this side.
What does this say? Why is he there? All right, that is just for airtime. It doesn't include production or, okay, that's cool.
Oh,
That's
cool.
cool.
Little facts.
Thank you, Kevin Hart. Thank you so much. All right, third question. What team has won the most Super Bowls?
Seattle Seahawks.
A, B, C, or D? It's not the Seahawks. It's not, all right here. D? All right, D. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not right. All right, next question. Let's keep going. Oh, Steelers have won. Okay. All right, take this one.
Okay, what company makes the Lombardi Trophy given to the winning team? The National Silver Company, Tiffany & Company, Zales, or F.B. Rogers Co.? Tiffany. Is that right? Oh! Look at you. We're going to Starbucks.
Let's keep going.
Okay, yes.
Here we go. What two teams have been to the Super Bowl 4 times and have lost all 4? This is sad.
The Seahawks. Just kidding.
All right, right here. Bills. Is that? Oh, you're right.
The Vikings. Hey. Okay, what two teams? Oh, there we are. Both teams have lost 4 Super Bowls, including 4 straight by the Bills in the 90s. That's sad. Okay. About 1.25 billion of these will be eaten on Super Bowl Sunday. Chicken wings, pizza, hot dogs, or potato chips?
All right, let's go like way in the back. I see blue shirt. A. Let's see if it's.
I think that's right.
It's
Woo!
Woo!
Who's okay?
Kennedy, how many more cars do we have to give away this service? 5 more. 5 more. We can do it. We can shove it in.
How many? Oh, is that you?
No,
Me.
you.
Sorry.
Ladies first.
Thank you.
There you go.
How many Super Bowls have gone into overtime? 8, 3, 12, or 1? Who has it? Okay, in the orange right here. Yes. What'd you say? 3? B, 3. Okay, let's see.
Oh, it's only 1?
Oh, D, 1. Super
Look at that.
Bowl
All right.
51.
All right, no card that time. Let's keep going.
I would thought it was 3 too. Okay,
Yeah.
your turn. Go.
The day after the Super Bowl, there is a 20% increase in sales of this: antacid, season tickets, team jerseys, or cars. Right here. Yeah. Team jerseys. Ooh, that's a good guess. Oh, Next question.
Next question. Of the 32 teams, how many have not made it to the Super Bowl? 2, 12, 4, or 9?
Should we go right here?
Yeah, right there.
4. C?
C4.
All right! Woo! Hey, these are hard questions. You guys are good.
I wouldn't have known these. Okay, next question. What was the only Super Bowl that didn't have Roman numerals in the logo? 25, 1, 50, or 10? Let's go here. B, 1. Let's see.
Oh, Super Bowl 50.
That's kind of weird.
Interesting. Is that the L?
No.
All right.
I don't know.
Let's keep going. Do we have more? I think we have like a million. Oh, that's it. Guys, thank you so much for playing. Hey, if you stay second service, maybe you'll get a card that time. Way to go. Way to go. All right. Hey, we have something very special. We have live animals in this service. It's amazing. All right, they are bringing it up right now. We are going to do something we have never done before.
Ever.
This is Paprika's prediction, all right?
Right here.
So for the past couple of years, we have done Beat Blake. We are still doing Beat Blake, but we're going to see if you're even smarter than a gerbil guinea pig named Paprika. Look at this. This is amazing. All right, let's bring the... All right. Let's give it up for Paprika right here, everybody. Paprika. We hope that you are not allergic. All right, now what side is what team? What side is what team? Should we say that this is... Who's playing in the Super Bowl? Rams? Bengals? Okay, Rams, this side? All right, hey, this side, this half, you may not want the Rams to win, but this side, we're cheering for Rams right now. All right, you're going to cheer for the Rams. This side, you're cheering for the...
Bengals.
Bengals. All right, Paprika, start in the middle. All right, cheer for your team. 1, 2, 3, go!
Wait.
Oh, come on. She likes the Rams.
Come on, baby. Come on, Paprika. Come on.
This is
You never
Groundhog
listen to
Day.
me.
Oh!
You never listen to me. Paprika. Paprika, no, you're going the wrong way. No!
Do we count that?
That's not fair.
I think
That's
she's right.
cheating.
Bengals won, everybody. That's it. It's like Groundhog Day.
Good job.
Way to go. Thank you, guys. Thank you so
You
much.
gave it your best.
Yes.
I would have gone to your lettuce.
That's amazing. Yeah, you're eating healthy, though. That's all right, and as promised, I think Blake is here.
Where's
do
Blake?
We have a Blake in the
Run
house?
up like a football player.
Blake, run down this aisle. Let's give it up for Blake. Come on. Woo-hoo!
You're
Blake,
legit.
stud. What's up, dude? How you doing? Good. Awesome. You excited for today? It's gonna be a good day, huh? That's right. Now, Blake, you have never been beaten. Is that right? I don't think that's right. I think I made that up.
He's
All
so good. This kid, just so you know, he knows so much about football. I would put him up against anyone in this room, probably. That way he could outsmart you on. Well, maybe you. Okay, you guys together.
Okay, so how this works?
yeah,
Check
he
in
knows
the
so much.
insert inside your bulletin. You have a little thing in there to vote for which team you think will win and by how many points. Okay, so we want point totals. And you will win a prize next week. This service wins a prize. Next service wins a prize. And Blake, you know, he's a genius.
You're
He
just
knows
trying to
everything.
outsmart
So
him.
It's very difficult. All right, Blake, we want to hear your prediction. We have somebody who's going to write down your numbers, okay? All right, are you ready? Yeah, go for it. All right, who do you think will win?
I think it's going to be the Rams.
The Rams, okay. Now, Paprika...
And it's going to be 24-7.
24/7. 24/7? Only 7? Okay, all right. You guys think that's right? He's only 9. You're like yelling, no. No, he's wrong. You could be right. I think so. All right, so everybody, write down your predictions. If you beat Blake, you win a prize. And during offering, that's going to be happening here in just a second, we want you to drop it in the buckets, and we'll collect them all, count the numbers. We'll see if you beat Blake. Blake, thank you so much for coming up here. What a great prediction. Awesome. Thank you, buddy. Awesome. All right, so right now we want to take up the morning offering, and this is just a way for you to give back to God what God has blessed you through your finances. So right now you can give in the service as the buckets are passing, and if you made your prediction, go ahead and drop it in that bucket too. We want to count that. You can also give online. You can give by text. You can give on the Shadow Rock Church app. You can give by mail. And if you think about it, carrier pigeon, dove, there's many ways to give.
All sorts of ways.
We accept them all.
Someone
we really
came
do.
up with a new way recently.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was.
We'll
We'll have to think about that.
We'll think about, I think Zelle.
Zelle?
That-
Yeah, someone said
Yeah,
Zelle.
that's
It's like, wow, okay.
It was
we may
so
add that.
sweet. In this service, I received somebody saying, there's a sixth way that you can give. It's Zelle. And I was like, oh, sweet. So you don't have to just give one. We're dragging it a
There's
little bit.
5+ ways.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
5+ ways. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you guys so much for your generosity. Thank you for giving today. Thank you for dropping those predictions in. And right now, I'm going to welcome up my dad, Pastor Craig.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? Thank you for that encouragement, that little, here's Craig. Okay, it's great to see you. My wife got me this shirt. She said, she went to the mall. She goes, Super Bowl. She goes, it is the most politically correct shirt ever. Because if you're not going to anger anybody today, you're not for either team, you're for both teams. Yay, Super Bowl. So politically correct, it's great. Not standing for anything today. But great to see you. I want to welcome those who maybe join us online, which you can do so every week. When you can't be here in person, you can watch us online from anywhere on the face of the planet. So welcome to each and every one of you. You can access that from our website, shadowrockchurch.com, or any of our social media platforms. I imagine we got a few people that are watching online today. But if you are here in person, we got some great things in store for you. You got ping pong tables set up outside. We got cornholes set up outside. And we're working Ralph to death out there because Ralph is making hamburgers and hot dogs so you can start your Super Bowl eating fest early. So it's all out there, and hopefully you can have some fun after the service today. As our second service folks are coming in, you may meet some new people, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know you went to this church. So hopefully you can take some advantage of some of the fun that's out there. So who do you think's going to win? Los Angeles Rams. How many of you Los Angeles Rams, you think that's the team for you? I'm actually from Missouri. I moved out here from Missouri, so I remember when it was the St. Louis Rams. And yes, Los Angeles, then St. Louis, and then back home. How many of you think it's the Bengals? You're going for the underdog a little bit today? How many of you are still rooting for the Seahawks? Go Seahawks. Anyway, it's great to see you. We've been walking through the book of Mark in this conversation, and it's about the real-life story of Jesus, the servant king. And you see those two themes in Mark. We're already on Mark chapter 7, and we're going to continue it today. We're going to carry this all the way into Easter, so the 16 chapters in Mark, so you can start to mark off how soon Easter's going to come up, but we're charging ahead. And if you've missed any of the previous messages, you can go back and look at our sermon archive through our website, catch any of the messages you may have missed. But you're all going to be theologians by the end of this because you're going to be experts on the book of Mark. So who wrote Mark? Mark. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. John Mark. His family was actually the one that owned the upper room. And so where Jesus had the Last Supper, where there was an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. It fell in the upper room. There's 120 people there. I actually showed you pictures of it. But John Mark was kind of there, and he was a protege of Peter. So Peter, a lot of the firsthand accounts that's recorded in Mark, probably from Peter. But this morning, we're going to look at something so very important because we're going to look at the foundation of all morality. If you've ever wondered what's right, what's wrong, who gets to choose, we're going to talk about that today because when I play a game, I'm super competitive. I mean, I beat Jen at Settlers of Catan, and I make her cry because she thinks she's the best, but really I'm the best. But, have you ever, played games with somebody and then they change the rules on you and you're like, no, they get the instruction book out and you're looking at the instruction book and they're like, no, well, this is house rules, whatever that means. And, it's very hard to feel like you're winning a game when you can't even agree on the rules. And everybody argues about the rules. It it is a very unpleasant job usually to be a referee. David Dangles is back here. He refs a lot of basketball games. And usually he's not a fan favorite. Everybody hates Dave by the end of the game because there's some rule or some call according to the rules that they disagree with. And it's just hard to know where you stand if you don't know what the rules are. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this today. Mark chapter 7, Jesus has this rather interesting encounter with some of the religious leaders. They call them Pharisees. They were the Jewish religious leaders who kind of took an adversarial view of Jesus. It's interesting that Jesus is coming up through this family that became a big nation, that held this covenant, this promise, and Jesus is born as the Savior, the long-awaited Messiah in this Jewish context, but he finds himself at odds with the religious leaders. And this is another encounter that he has with them. So it says this, and starting in verse 5, it says, "So the Pharisees and teachers of the religious law asked him, 'Why don't your disciples follow our age-old tradition? They eat without first performing the hand-washing ceremony.'" And this had nothing to do really with hygiene. It was more kind of a ceremonial practice that they had practiced for a number of centuries at that point. Jesus replied, "You hypocrites! Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you, for he wrote, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God.'" Skipping down to verse 14, it says this, "Then Jesus called to the crowd to come and hear, and it says, 'All of you listen and try to understand. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you.'" So it begins to confront some of the ceremonial eating practices that they had there that was part of the Jewish religion. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You're defiled by what comes out of your heart. And then he added, "It is what comes from the inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness." That's a long list. "All these vile things come from within. They are what defiles you." So it's interesting. It's one of these rather rare times that Jesus begins to list out things that are vile, evil things that unfortunately are an earmark of our human experience. And so it raises a question. What makes something right or wrong? What makes something right or wrong? And another question that it raises is, who gets to choose what's right or wrong in our society? Who gets to choose? I mean, not all of us agree. Some of us from different religious persuasions might have different ideas about what's right and wrong, and we might debate them. People who are people of faith and people who don't believe in God might have a different idea. People who live in the United States might have a different idea from somebody who lives in China or the Middle East or Africa and other parts of the world. So what's right and what's wrong, and how do you get to choose? And is there measures to, this is more right than this, and this is less wrong than this? And we begin to have all these debates inside of our mind and justifications. What's right and what's wrong, and who gets to choose? And in this debate, sometimes there's something in our society that's called moral relativism. And basically it says that, everybody's right. Everybody must be right. And so they're looking at it would be wrong to point out anybody and say you're wrong. Non-judgmentalism becomes the ethic that begins to raise up inside of everybody's mind. And so everybody's right. And they redefine what tolerance is. The old definition of tolerance, some of you grew up with this old definition, and this makes perfect sense to you. The old definition of tolerance was that everybody had a right to their own opinion. That was your definition of tolerance. If you have a different opinion, everybody has a right to your own opinion. But the new definition of tolerance says that everybody's opinion is right. because we live in a world that you really can't point out anybody for doing anything wrong anymore because we can't agree on a standard of morality. We can't agree on the foundation of what is right and what is wrong. And so, whatever is right for you must be right. Whatever you believe must be right. And so we just get in this society where everything is right and nothing is wrong. And sometimes we think that power influences what is right. And historians say this: to the victor gives the ability to write history. And so if you win a war, or if you're the victor in a battle, you have the ability to write history, and you vilify the loser. And so might equals right. Even when you start to accuse things that happen in history, a lot of historians would say, well, you just think that the victor was right and that they were morally superior in that particular battle because they won. Might equals right. Another thing that it says, well, it was right for at that time. It's right for you, but not for me. That was right for you, but not for me. That was right for that time, but not for this time. So is there a right and a wrong for all people in all places in all times? And especially when you get into any kind of religious tradition, we can't even agree on that. For years ago, I was a youth pastor, and then I got demoted to be the lead pastor. I believe in teenagers. Teenagers are incredible, and our church believes in teenagers. We invest all kinds of money and resources and people into what we do with students. We're, not that far from La Quinta High School here, and we do everything we can just to love on all of the teenagers that attend La Quinta High School and all of our high schools really here in the Valley. I love teenagers. They are amazing. And when you think about as a teenager, by the time they graduate from high school, probably within the next 5 years, they're going to be making some of the biggest decisions of their life. They're going to choose perhaps who they're going to marry. They're going to choose their career. They're going to choose whether they're going to believe in God or not. And so we do a lot of things just to invest in these students so they know why they believe what they believe. It's not just my parents' religion. It's something that is uniquely mine. And the interesting statistic that you'll find is that for everybody who's a Christian in the United States that professes being a follower of Jesus, 85% of those people made that decision before the age of 18. And that means that student ministry may be one of the most powerful evangelistic forces in the world. We have a unique opportunity to invest in teenagers. And I loved being a youth pastor, and I had a lot of students come, and I would be on the campus, and I'd just build relationships, and I'd love every student, regardless of whether they went to my church or not, because I don't want to pastor a church, I want to pastor a community, right? And so I would really build relationships, and over the course of time, I would say, hey, I would love for you to come to my youth group sometime. Come to church. I'd love to continue to talk about your faith journey. And so it took a lot of work to get somebody who wasn't accustomed to coming to church to come to church. And so I would get a student that would come, and they all come, and they're trying to figure out who they are, and so they'll come with mohawks, and they look strange. Teenagers, you look so strange to us. Especially the older you get, they're just trying to figure out their own individuality, and it's part of their process. And, so when my kids would come and they do weird stuff, I'd be like, well, they're figuring out who they are. That's part of the journey. And we had a student that came in, and they wore a hat. And they came in, and some people grow up in a generation and at a time when you don't wear your hat indoors, and they would consider that disrespectful if you're a guy. And so, Ian, they would say, Ian, what are you doing wearing that hat? And there's even passages in the Bible that talks about kind of Jewish custom that it would be unfavorable for you to wear a hat. It would be dishonoring to God because men uniquely should not cover their head. In fact, they would say, you can't even grow your hair out long because it would be You like covering your head and covering the glory of God because you're made in the image of God. And so you could pick out verses in the Bible that seem to endorse this idea that we can't wear a hat in church. But for this teenager that I had been building a relationship for a long time, he came in, he's wearing a hat, and he's just having a great time. He's loving church, and I'm loving him being there. Well, I had another friend who was a little older than me, and I think he thought it was a little funny, but not really. But he thought he would go in there, and he wasn't really a volunteer in our youth ministry. He was just somebody in the church, and he had been there for a long time. Generationally, he had been there. His parents went to that church, and his grandparents went to that church, so he kind of felt like he owned the place, and he's walking in there, and he sees this teenager wearing this hat. And he walks up to this teenager, and he knocks the hat off the kid's head, and he goes, "You can't wear a hat in church." And he walks away kind of smiling. And I walked up, and I'm like, "Do you know how long I've invested in that teenager coming to this church? You know how I've built a relationship and loved him?" And he goes, "Yeah, but he shouldn't wear a hat in church." And I go, he's not wearing a hat to dishonor God. He's wearing a hat because he thinks it's a fashion statement. And he looks great in that hat. And your standards don't apply to him. It might be a big deal to you, but it's not something to him. God's looking at his heart, and I'll tell you, God is applauding that he's here. And you just made it uncomfortable for him. And again, I thought he was kind of joking a little bit, but I just wanted him to understand what it was like for him, what it was like for this student. And students sometimes, they can get easily offended, or if they're pointed out or in some kind of negative fashion, it becomes very uncomfortable for them. And so I was uncomfortable for this student. But it's interesting, even in that environment, whether you're in a particular region of the country or you have a particular religious background, your values might be different than that other generation or that other region or that other person. And when you come in and you're just like, "I'm going to impose my perspective upon somebody else," you might do a lot of damage. Would you agree? We can't even agree what's right and wrong. To my friend that's knocking off hats, he thought he was right. But to that teenager, he thought he was wrong. Is there something that is right for all people in all places and all times, and how do we gauge that? Especially when you can point at different places in the Bible that seem to reinforce certain things, and especially when you go back to the Old Testament and that particular custom and that particular tradition and that particular religion, and you try to then translate that to our culture and in our place and our times, and it seems to reinforce this idea that everything's relevant and we can change and do everything here. And so Jesus comes on the scene, and he's confronting the contradiction that people have. This religious leader who thought it was horribly wrong for Jesus not to go through a ceremonial washing before eating. And he begins to highlight other things, and Jesus begins to poke holes in their moral foundation. And he points out a lot of different contradictions. When you have a list of things to do, and you have the 10 Commandments, and the Jews had 613 different rules and regulations, basically about the 10 Commandments and how you might apply them. And so there becomes loopholes, and Jesus says you skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your own tradition. And so Jesus points out that one of the 10 Commandments, honoring your father and mother. And he says, you heard the term honor your father and mother, and he says, but you don't do it. And he points out this thing that was adopted in religious code where people would commit their finances to God, and they would do what's called a korban, and they would establish a vow that my finances, my money is reserved for sacred and religious purposes. And it was a way that they could keep their money out of the hands of their parents. And so instead of honoring their parents, their parents might be in need, and they're like, "Oh, I'd love to help you, but unfortunately, I vowed all of my money for religious purposes, and I can't give you any of it." And as a result, they would sidestep this commandment to honor your parents. Sounds pretty sneaky, doesn't it? can you imagine going to your parents and like, I'd love to help you out, but sorry, I've got this religious loophole that I've found myself in. I've pointed this out before, but there's Eruv. It's this. So on the Sabbath, it says you can only go 200 feet from the door of your house. And if you are a religiously observant Jew, what they did centuries ago is if you could have a string that would go from the front door of your house to wherever you would go, you could extend that 200 feet a little bit further. And so now, centuries later, what they've done is they have put a string around the boundaries of entire cities. In fact, if you go to pretty much any major city in the United States, there is a thin wire that goes around the boundaries of that particular city. And you can see it there. That's a hidden wire, and it's in Manhattan, it's in St. Louis, it's in Minneapolis. There's a thin wire that goes all around that particular city. You might remember a few years ago, Joe Lieberman, who is a very observant Jew, he, on the Sabbath, had to vote in Congress one particular Sabbath. And so you're not allowed to start your car because you're not allowed to light any fires. And they say, well, when you turn the key, you're actually lighting a fire. And so you can't drive a car on the Sabbath. So they walk everywhere. And so Joe Lieberman had to walk 4.5 miles. Well, he's way farther than the 200 feet that you can be from the front door of your house. And so they get around this by creating a loophole, but by putting this thin wire all around the boundaries of Washington, D.C. So within that boundary, it's all, quote unquote, your house because of that thin little wire. And you create all these loopholes. And any religion, even our denomination, has created loopholes, little places that whenever you create a list of things and list of do's and don'ts, you find a way around it. In regards to the Sabbath, I've talked about it and when we went through Mark chapter 2, but Jesus said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So when God said, take a day of rest, you got to remember that the Jews had been in slavery for 200 years. And so when Jesus is offering a day of rest, I mean, it was unheard of that we get a day off, a day just to reflect about how God has given us freedom and how God has forgiven us. And it was this huge gift to this culture that had been under slavery. Well, all of a sudden, something that was made as a blessing for humankind now becomes something that becomes very constrictive, very confining, and very oppressive. And Jesus begins to point out all of these loopholes because he's offering a different foundation for morality. And sometimes when we say what is right and what is wrong, a quick answer for people who've grown up in church says, well, that's right and that's wrong because that's what the Bible says. But the Bible is a presentation really of the character of God. And we want to talk about Jesus is foundation of all morality. What makes something right and what makes something wrong? Is there an absolute truth that applies to all people in all places and all time? And so because of our society and our culture, we've put up different ethics that are the main ethic that we apply everything to. One of those ethics is to be non-judgmental. You can't judge anybody. You can't judge anybody. The only people that you can judge are people that are judgmental. You can judge them all you want. So they've made non-judgmentalism as the main ethic within our culture. Wouldn't you agree? Another ethic within our culture that's taken supremacy is a happiness ethic. People make all kinds of destructive decisions because wouldn't God want me to be happy? And so they make happiness an ethic, and they want to do this, and they want to do that. And well, I got to be happy, whatever makes me happy. But Jesus had a different ethic. And this is an ethic that you could apply to every single decision, every question of morality. Every time you're wondering what's right and what's wrong, what do I do? You can apply this ethic to everything. His ethic was the love ethic. The love ethic. I want to read just several passages of scripture here, many from Paul's epistles, of how they applied this love ethic to everything. And the love ethic is based upon Jesus' commands when he said, all the law of the prophets, everything that you would base morality on, are based upon these three directions of love. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, so love God. And love your neighbor as yourself, so love others, and also love yourself. And like a three-legged stool, all morality hinges upon those three things. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit later at the end, but love God, love others, love yourself. And it's applied throughout the New Testament as they're applying this brand new ethic that relates to everything, all questions of morality. Ephesians 4, Paul said it this way, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. And listen to this, instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. That is a great rule to live by. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. Philippians chapter 2 said this, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset of Christ as Christ Jesus. 1 Corinthians 13, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Sometimes we think about religious power and the supernatural and all those things that we would look at and say, oh, wow, look at their amazing person of faith. But for Jesus and the early church, what established the depth of your spirituality was how well you loved one another. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, if you have faith that can move mountains, just raise your hand because I'd love you to pray for some things today. But if I have faith that can move mountains, but I don't have love, listen to this, I am nothing. If I give all that I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardships that I may boast, but I don't have love, I gain nothing. This love ethic, if you don't have it, then nothing else matters. 1 John 1 talks about this. Throughout 1 John, it talks about this. But if anyone obeys his word, love for God is truly made complete in them. This is how we know that we are in him. Who claims to live in him must live as Jesus did. Chapter 4, it says, dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us. We love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God yet hates his brother and sister is a liar. And listen to this. This makes it as clear as it possibly can be. Galatians 5:6. The only thing that counts, the only thing that counts, the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. That's it. It's Jesus' love ethic. And so there really is a higher morality when we think about this, because a lot of times we want a list. Just tell me what to do. Give me a list of these are the things you do, these are the things you don't do. And we're looking for a precept. But the morality that Jesus offers us is beyond a precept. It's beyond even a book. It's a person. We're moving from precept to person. We're following Jesus. And the Bible does represent who Jesus is. It's how we know what Jesus did and the message that he has. But We're not following a book, we're following a person. We're following the character and nature of God. He is the example of how we should live our life. Jesus' morality, his love ethic, is the end of religious self-righteousness. What happens is, and Jesus points this out all the time, is because I did this, then I can ignore that. Because I went to church, then I can ignore this other compartment of my life that's destructive. Because I give in the offering, then I can ignore this over here. And we end up hiding behind this. And when Jesus points his finger at these religious leaders and he says, "You hypocrite," what is the number one accusation that people who are not of faith have against people who are in the faith? That they are hypocrites. And the word hypocrite is an interesting word in the Greek language. It actually means the actor in a play, the pretender. That we're pretending, that our religious piousness, our religious observance allows us to hide behind our religion in order to pretend that we're this good person, that we're doing all these wonderful things, but we're hiding the secret things in our heart that God ultimately wants to deal with. We're dealing with behavior rather than heart transformation. It's the end of religious self-righteousness when we can just puff ourselves up and say, "Look at all I'm doing. Because I did this, I can ignore this." And here's the other thing. Jesus' love ethic, it's simple, but it's not easy. I had a lady approach me a few years ago, and she said, she was just starting this faith journey, and she'd come from different religious backgrounds. And she came, and she goes, "I've been coming to Shadow Rock for a long time." And she just says, "It can't be this easy. There's got to be more to it. It seems so simple, and that God forgives us, and that he gives us grace, and we're going to be transformed, and all of it. It can't be that easy." And I just smiled at her, and I said, "It's simple, but it's not easy." The concept of forgiveness, it's simple, but I think you could agree it's not easy. The concept of loving your enemies, it's a simple concept, but you can agree it's not easy. The idea of generosity, that's a simple concept, but you and I can agree it's not easy. Sexual purity, it's a rather simple concept, but it's not easy. To live as Jesus lived, to love like Jesus loved. Following his example, we read and study his life. Maybe it's simple. It's not easy. There's no loopholes. There's no place that you could just kind of hide behind. The love of Jesus exposes our heart for what it truly is. So the question is, what does love really require of me? That three-legged stool, to love God, to love others, to love yourself. And when I thought about that, and I was thinking about that even right before the service, and I began to process that, because you can't really do one without the others. They're dependent upon each other, like that three-legged stool. You can't love God and hate other people. You can't love God and not love yourself. You can't love others and hate God. You can't love yourself and yet hate others. They're dependent upon the others. And then I started thinking, well, you can't love yourself and love others and hate God, because you'll get your selfishness will get in the way. You can't love others and love God and yet hate yourself. And there's places, I've been processing that a little bit. There's times where we might deny ourselves. There's times where we may put others in front of ourselves. But Jesus even accepted the generosity of some ladies that paid his bills. Jesus went to sleep. Jesus withdrew to a solitary place to recoup and rest. Jesus slept. And when you think about it, every time Jesus went to sleep, if he stayed awake, there would have been another person that he could have touched. If Jesus would have rejected the generosity of these women that paid his bills, Well, maybe there would have been money he could have funneled to some poor person and handled this need over here. But he understood, in order to do this long term, I also have to love myself. I have to care about myself. And if you just love God and love others and you're just doing all kinds of things, eventually, if you don't love yourself, you're going to start resenting that process in your own life. Each of these is dependent upon the others. And it's very, very important that we understand that and we start to apply this as the matrix for how we relate to morality and what we do. So why is lying a sin? Well, you could say, well, the Bible says so. Well, the Bible says so because there's a principle of honesty. You can deceive somebody without actually lying to them. There's a principle of honesty that is even higher. And then why is that principle so important? Because God is truth. When you lie, you're doing something against the character and nature of who God is. You're devaluing people in your life. You're not loving others. You're not even loving yourself because you're living with that deception inside of yourself. What's the big deal about gossiping and slandering people? Well, you're destroying another person. You're devaluing them. You're dishonoring God. Why do Christians think it's wrong to have sex before marriage? A lot of times people are, well, it's consensual. They're agreeing with it, and they're agreeing with it. But here's the thing sometimes that I say to teenagers. You think about this. Let's imagine you just sleep with whoever you want all the way through college, and then one day you find that one. Let me ask you this question. Are you tempted to lie to that soulmate of yours that you think is the one person you're supposed to be with? Are you tempted to lie about your sexual history? Yeah, you are. Why? The other thing I ask is that, let's say you meet your one and the other people that you've been sexually intimate with, they've met their one and years go by, even decades go by, and all of a sudden you see that person in the grocery store and they're walking down an aisle and you're walking down an aisle and you've been sexually intimate with them. Now you're married to somebody else and they're married to somebody else. Is there a part of you that wants to hide? Yeah. Because you know what? That sexual intimacy is designed to be exclusive with somebody. Exclusivity is what fuels romance. And now you've given away something or you've taken something from somebody else in that relationship. You end up hurting their future spouse. You end up hurting that person. And the Bible even says you hurt yourself. Because that part of you that's made to stick to one person for your entire life, it's become less sticky. Your ability to connect and commit has been impugned. You hurt yourself. So the love ethic applies to all kinds of things in our life, to love God, to love others, and to love yourself. Here's the wonderful thing. As you look upon your life, you may say, you know what, I've messed up a lot. I've violated that ethic. I've kind of found loopholes through my life because I want to be a good person. The wonderful thing is the grace of God's available to you. You can have a brand new start today because the love ethic applies to you. And if God's giving you a brand new start, what if you gave a brand new start to somebody else? Why don't you bow your heads and close your eyes with me today? Lord, I thank you that you have given us a foundation of all morality. You've given us a love ethic that defines everything. Lord, because of that, we can make decisions that honor you, that honor others, and that even honor ourselves. So, Lord, I pray that you would set us free, that we would establish a brand new beginning today with you. There may be people even right now that are committing their life to you in faith because they recognize they're going the wrong way and they've hurt people and they've hurt you and they've hurt themselves. And they're living with such shame and regret and it feels so broken. But today, you can give them a brand new beginning because you love them. And today we can give a brand new beginning even for people who've hurt us because the way that you have loved us, we can now extend to other people in our life. Lord, this is how we change a world. This is how we change a marriage. This is how we change a family. This is how we change a church. What if we just love others the way that you have loved us first? And so I pray, Lord, that we would reestablish the rules of our life. And I thank you that you've given us a foundation of what is right and wrong, and that applies to all people in all places, in all times. Thank you for that in the name of Jesus.